I don't think he needs much of an introduction. He's the organizer, bringing everybody together, looking into cooperation and collaboration for the future development. So then when he will talk about nature product driven drug discovery from IIIN.
Morning, so good morning everybody. I feel privileged to give this talk. Welcome Professor Ranjit Raj Chaudhary. It's a pleasure to speak before you. Dr. Handa, Dr. Kazi, distinguished invitee delegates. So before I come to my presentation, because a lot of students are there and I would like to just briefly address them for a couple of minutes there. The way the science of drug discovery have evolved over hundreds of years, the way I look at it, that it's the same continuum of knowledge. And I think if we address these issues with that thought in your mind, there is no conflict. It's a quest to find solutions to your problem. And this is the ultimate tribute to human ingenuity. The most adverse circumstances, people have found solution to it. So I think this discovery of substances from nature or whatever means that are available has been a paradigm. And I think somebody nicely mentioned that if you go back to the 19th century, this was the paradigm that most of the medicine that were listed in pharmacopoeia of even European pharmacopoeia or American pharmacopoeia were these preparations. And slowly, more and more intrusion of modern scientific tools revealed a revolution basically. I consider that revolution, and I mentioned in my earlier remark also that this is perhaps the most successful human enterprise in the history of human development, that today we have armamentarium of substances which can provide relief to us from diseases of all kinds. And I think many times when we complain, I allude to that ultimate human selfishness because we are never satisfied with what we have. I think what we have achieved in the last 100 years or even 50 years is a remarkable progress in modern science. And since expectations have gone up, I think we have to continue that march. So there is no confusion on that side. So I consider me as much as a student of Ayurveda as a student of chemistry. So I think I have no confusion on that counts. And chemistry or pharmacology, if we follow the route of R.N. Chopra, I think these are two enabling mechanisms that we have to understand the mysteries of these substances which nature produces. And of course, there is an evolutionary argument that you can find solutions to all of these correlations. With this, what I will do today is that give you a brief snapshot of what is our perspective of integrating the ideas, approaches from Ayurveda or other traditional system of medicine or medicinal plant, and how do we fuse them with modern tools of chemistry and pharmacology. And particularly when we look at the discovery paradigm, today it is broken for the last 40-45 years by the self-inflicted wounds that we did to ourselves. I just don't have time to that, but I think we created an ecosystem where large area of discovery and development expertise were slowly vanished. And today we find in a situation that we can't bring all these pieces together. So that's I think we have to acknowledge that. But the silver lining for this is that while this expertise base was disappearing in scientific institutions and universities, the economy was driving a different source of the expertise coming back to our country in a different disguise. And that disguise is in the form of what we call today contract research organizations. So now India is a service provider for large number of drug development services to Western pharmaceutical companies. And I think that is an opportunity for us to link with that ecosystem rather than trying to again set up those facilities within the scientific system, because that will take a lot of time. So we have to find a harmony between what exists already in the country in terms of expertise, in terms of regulatory expertise, in terms of development expertise, and link that with our capability of essentially doing first-rate early discovery. And for early discovery, we have all the facilities, and we can do that in national institutions as well as in our pharmaceutical companies. And again, to address this, make this point a little bit clear, I always show this slide to people, particularly to students who are new to this game, that this is a remarkable success story of human endeavor, that almost all first-in-class drugs today that are in modern medicine will owe their origin in natural products. He himself alluded to our natural products, and almost all antibiotics that we use today are natural products. So this is the track record for successful discovery of substances from natural sources. And the statistics of last 10 years, you see 40 new drugs by US FDA are natural products. And I think this rate is going up. In the last 2 years has been remarkably good. The data of this year will come pretty soon. More importantly, these substances, I think we overlook this fact that we are always looking for moon. But before you reach to moon, there are stars, there are smaller places which are equally fascinating. Natural products provide you opportunity to explore the biology of this physiology. And as you can see, if you go to history of pharmacology of any of these targets, be the GPCR or the kinase or ion channel, I can argue with you that each of these pathways and mechanisms were actually opened up by when a small molecule was discovered somewhere in natural products. So whatever we know today about Golgi apparatus, if you go to history of Golgi apparatus and mechanism how Golgi worked, you will find that when Brufentin and Monancil were discovered, then pharmacologists started using and unlocking the mechanism of Golgi. And same goes for kinases, ion channels, and of course these are these blockbusters for opiate and statins. So these are landmark paradigms that happen in biology when these kind of substances are discovered. Much of what we know about T-cell signaling pathway, many people don't know, is because of rapamycin and FK506. These natural products were discovered, and then pharmacologists figured it out that these substances work by these kinds of mechanisms. And particularly in CNS, in fact, much of what we know about the receptor system in the brain, the muscarinic receptor or cholinergic receptor or now we have renin receptor, they are all because of these small natural products that we discovered from plant, and of course that has a unique evolutionary linkages, and some of these substances are mentioned here, and no wonder that they are the major sort of attractive point for a lot of advances that we make in synthetic chemistry and biology. These are some of the molecules that have been approved very recently, and I've listed some of those, and the very first is actually the latest example, the capsaicin, which is now approved, and this is nothing but coming from the humble chili that we use every day here. And the important part is not that this has been discovered and this is a drug. The important part is that because of this structure, now we have discovered 13 or 14 new receptors in human brain. TRP1 to TRP13, and how many more are there, who knows. So whole secret of universe of human brain is discovered because of this simple molecule, which is also curing pain. So these are the remarkable lineage of these structures which are there in nature, and all of these structures. And one very important point when I put up this slide for people who are chemistry oriented, people who are pharmacologists, to look at these, that do we really understand the correlation between structure and function? We don't. So I think as a chemist, we have to ponder about that. Our next challenge is actually to figure out the correlation. That there is no correlation between a very complex structure and a very simple structure in terms of the complex pharmacology or simple pharmacology. These are the questions for next generation to ask that we have to figure out. So essentially I can say this, that we have learned to how to make molecules, but we have not learned to design a property. And I think that's the next challenge that will happen with in the area of drug discovery. Some other structures. very simple structure. This was, this is the example that this kind of structure has been just approved for multiple sclerosis, and actually this is going to replace the antibody for this very deadly disease in children. And remarkably, this structure was lying in the literature. This was discovered in 1960s, and it was sitting quietly in natural product literature. And suddenly people picked it up and started working on for its immunosuppressive activity, and then today we have now a drug emerging out of this. So that's the beauty of some of these structures which are there in nature. These are listing of some of these drugs, well-known drugs that basically have, I put this because they have ethnobotanical leaves, means they are all from ideas emerging from traditional system of medicine, the Ayurveda or Unani or Siddha or Chinese and South American system. So this is a very, very important, rich source of substances. Many of the life-saving drugs, I don't know how many millions of people would have died if this structure was not discovered from a plant. So these are like a kind of a paradigm shift in the human history of drug discovery. Other structures which were discovered from India. Now, I will then switch over to some of the program that we are running in the institute, just to give you an idea that what is our approach, how do we approach these problems. This is a basic work of the substance which was done in the institute some time ago, where there was this natural product from very well-known plant in Indian system of medicine, Boswellia serrata, and it produces a large number of these substances from its gum. And this substance was isolated. Initial discovery work was done, and as you can see, one important aspect of this was that when you combine this substance, it has its own anti-cancer activity. But when you combine with cisplatin, actually you can bring down the dose of cisplatin, maintaining the same level of GI. That was a broad observation that we had. And then we started discussing with clinicians here. I mentioned this point here that clinical insight and discovery is absolutely necessary. And majority of the programs fail in our laboratory because of lack of insight from clinicians at the hospitals. So we started discussing. Initially we were very disappointed that how much GI that we are enhancing, but clinician is exciting. He said if you enhance 10% GI, it's a great improvement. And if I can reduce the dose of cisplatin even 20% in refractory cases, or the cases where patient in terminal phase, he cannot tolerate cisplatin because it's very toxic drug, it will be huge important. So because of clinical input, we could then make a program for this along with this hospital, and then we are working on this to take it to clinical proof of concept studies. So I will describe just some idea that amount of work that is required. This is our isolation protocol. So this is natural mixture of two isomers. These isomers are separated from this resin, and then we do 3 chemical steps to slice it, and we can take to 97 to 99% substance impurity. And as you can appreciate the amount of compound that we are handling, so we start from 171 kg of this gum resin, and this all done in the institute thanks to our chemistry infrastructure and the quality of the chemistry that we have in the institute. I'm very proud of that. And then what our plan is that we have done, of course, everything, but now since the regulatory requirement is to have the GMP batch for this, so these steps we will carry out in the industry, for which we have identified it as GMP partner who will manufacture this for us. Of course, all the data is all generated. Structure, we have filed this patent. Purity profile, impurity profile, crystallization, so we know the 3-dimensional structure of these substances. And this, we did a lot of studies. This is a summary of result. In fact, we did earlier in vivo studies in this model, and then we discussed with clinicians. We invited a lot of clinicians from All India Institute of Medical Sciences here and presented this data. And then they advised us to revise this protocol and study this instead of 9-day protocol. They advise us that look into 15 days protocol. Idea here is that we are giving this substance orally for 15 days, and then we are giving cisplatin day 1 and day 7. That's a protocol the clinician suggested. So this is the data for the 15-day protocol for oral of this substance. As you can see, 50 mpk, 100, 200, 400. And you can see decent dose-related response reaching here. And in oncology area, 40 to 50%, 60% GI is considered to be very significant, because the paradigm in oncology is combination of molecules. You are not expected to have one molecule giving you 100% dose. So then we did the 15-day protocol where then again we did the cisplatin, day 1 and day 7, as you can see 5 milligrams. So we did all the doses starting from 5 mpk to 1.25. And we measured these dose responses, and then we did studies with combining. So you have 5 mg cisplatin, day 1 and 7, and this compound every day for 15 days. And this combination we can go up to 53%, 5 mg, 100 mg we can go to 56%, 5 mg, 200 mg we can go to 65%. So roughly we can drive on top of in fact we can bring down the dose and then get at least 10 to 12% additional GI. So some of the other combinations, this is 2.5 mg. So what we are doing is that we are doing reverse combination with the cisplatin and 2.5. And then we hit upon the wall. So we did this study with the oral, and when we did the oral PK, we can't see this substance. This was done with Jubilant Biosys in Bangalore, and it was not detectable. And then we did IV PK, excellent IV PK. You can see T half 7.8. This is ideal PK basically for a drug-like substance. Cmax is excellent. And AUC, very good AUCs, all data is very good. So then issue is that substance is active orally, but we are not able to see this substance in circulation. So our hypothesis is that perhaps in the gut, this substance is metabolizing to something else, which is equally pharmacologically active, then it's going in circulation. So right now we are doing metabolic study looking at the metabolite of this substance. And we have two approaches. Either we will, if we find that IV is also equally potent, then we will look for the IV combination. Otherwise, ideally our preference is to have the oral combination with this substance. And initially our plan to have a study, a clinical proof of concept study with a standalone compound, and then we look for combination. And of course, cisplatin is first choice, but then we look for the other combination with this substance. Of course, we have to test this cytochrome P450 profile, and this is looks clean. At 10 micromolar, that is a regulatory requirement that has to be done. Metabolic stability of this substance, that was done in microsomal, human, rat, mice, all this was done. And we have developed an oral formulation of this. I don't have time to describe this. This is done in IIIN. Solubility data in oral formulation. So we have now a reasonably good pre-formulation group in the institute which can give you, because this is also a very critical component. When you are doing drug discovery and development, you need these kind of input very early on. Otherwise, all the way you go there and you don't know what is your solubility of substance, then the whole program collapses. And it's decent sort of simulated intestinal fluid, simulated gastric fluids, all that data is available with this substance. And acute oral toxicity study has been done, which is mice, so this looks very good, up to 2 grams per kg body weight, so clean. So our people say that falls into the category of 5 GHS of OECD, which is a very safe substance. So that is this discovery program. This we are doing with the institute, and hopefully in a 6 to 8 months time we should be able to initiate this study here. The second program that we are running is this very important pathway in oncology, what we call PI3 kinase pathway. And this is very critical for oncology and for inflammation. Here, since we are a natural product institute, our focus more is on to discover isoform specific inhibitors of kinases. And I think this is the next paradigm in kinase field. Kinase area has been very, very successful. In the last, I think, 10 years, we have more than 15 compounds approved globally for various kinds of cancers. But the problem is that all of them are ATP competitive inhibitors. And I think that's a challenge that we have, that now we have to start looking at allosteric and non-ATP competitive inhibitor in this area. And I believe that natural product provides that opportunity. And here in PI3K, as we know, we have 4 isoforms, alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And remarkably, 2 of them, alpha and gamma, alpha and delta, are controlled by receptor tyrosine kinase, and the other 2 are controlled by GPCRs. So it's a very important paradigm in the biology that why nature uses 4 isoforms, drive them through 2 different independent pathways. So to address this question, this is just a chemical way of explaining you that what chemistry actually happens during pathway. Just to tell you that there is a phosphorylation event which is very transient, and it has to revert back in microseconds. If it doesn't, because of the mutation in the phosphatase that has to remove this phosphate, you have a continuous signaling going down and you have continuous proliferation of cell that is happening. And almost 40 to 50% tumors have mutation in this what we call P10 phosphatase. And that's a whole biochemical mechanism is very well understood. And of course, is now this area of cell biology is very well advanced, and I think people can go to literature and understand this. So what is our approach? So in these areas when you enter, is that we have to first validate our assays along with the competitor's molecules. Because many times we start these assays and we start screening our compound, and which are sub-optimized assays, and that's where most of our chemistry effort goes into waste. So what we have done in this case is that we have made all these substances except this. These are all substances which are in various phases of clinical trial globally. So we synthesize these substances in-house, we set up these assays in-house, and we make sure that our assays are optimized to the level which is reported in the literature along with the same compound. So we are not depending on literature data, we are generating our own data and validating these assays. And after these assays have been done, then I normally validate this a place outside the institute, which is, as of now, we are doing at a very nice facility, University of Dundee in Scotland, and we validate these targets there. And any program that we start, we have to set up a TPP for that program. We have to decide beforehand what I am looking at. Otherwise, the program will keep on drifting. People have tendency that I have got this now, so I will, everybody has emotional attachment with the molecule that you have made. So we have to very well define in these pathways that this is the profile of the molecule that I need, and this is my competition. And what are the improvements that I am going to drive in these pathways. I just don't have time to go to each of these points, but these are the parameters that one has to define in these targets. So we started working on these natural products, remarkable natural product. A humble marine organism makes it. And if you see the profile of this is beautiful. This is the first molecule which has 10-fold selectivity for alpha isoform versus gamma isoform. 100 nanomolar IC50 for alpha and 1 micromolar for gamma. Very remarkable structure, and I believe that it works through a mechanism which is different than ATP competition. So we started working on, we synthesized this, validated in-house, and did the cell-based data. Of course, this is a synthetic route. We can make it now in good quantity in the institute. A lot of chemistry, I just will not go into this. Then we started modifying 6-membered ring system. In fact, the activity in 6-membered is even better. 66 nanomolar, IC50, and the fold selectivity is also very good with the other isoforms. And then we got 2 substances here. So just to draw your point with the isoform selectivity. So look at this structure. We have IC50, 100 nanomolar, and beta is 30 micromolar. So we have many fold selectivity in these kind of isoform that we are looking at. So with this is another program that we are running where we have again another series of substance. I will not go into great detail in this, just to tell you that we can arrive at the 100 nanomolar and fold selectivity. So you see here 1.84 and 100 nanomolar. So quite good selectivity can be achieved, because why I am emphasizing the selectivity, that many of these isoforms like beta are lethal. So you don't want to touch them. This is all clinically validated now that you need to have substances which are only selected for cancer, alpha, and if you are looking for rheumatoid arthritis, you have to target gamma isoform. So it's very critical because this pathway is a basically master regulator of proliferation. So you have to be very careful with this. So this is the structure of one substance. This is the profile that we have done, pre-formulation studies and the cell-based studies. And of course, from this series, in my previous lab where I used to work, this molecule has gone to now clinical trial. In fact, in this very center where IND has been filed, and this was the patent that we took when I used to work in Pramod. So it's a very successful scaffold for us. Another scaffold that we have got for PI3K is the trizine scaffold. I will just quickly skip and describe you some very interesting substances. See the IC50s of 4.5, 5.5 nanomolar, very reasonable fold selectivity that we can get from these structures. And then, of course, we do the solubility, the kinase activity, cell line activity, aqueous solubility, C-log-P, cytochrome P450 data is pretty good at 10 micromolar, so this is acceptable. And decent PK parameters are for this substance have been done, and others are being done. The second area that we have started working is the CDK, very important area for the again cancer. And here we are going back to a very well-known plant in Western Ghats, Xylem binactiferium. This plant grows in Western Ghats, and this produces a substance well known in the literature called roentgen. I think there was a plant called Amura roentica from which roentgen was initially isolated. And when we got this plant through our collaboration with a chemical ecologist in the Western Ghats, and surprisingly, the 8 to 9% this secondary metabolite is sitting in that plant. I am surprised still as a natural product chemist, I have not come across any plant which makes this much of substance. Huge amount of this is made here, and this is a very powerful CDK inhibitor. And based on this scaffold, there are only one drug which is approved as an orphan drug. Of course, discovered in India, developed by Sanofi, and the second drug is the phase 3 clinical trial in the Pramod labs. So we started working, we evolved since here the advantage was that these natural products were available in a very good amount to us. So a lot of our medicinal chemistry was based on the structure that is isolated from plant. And here we combine the approach for, I will describe later, for the new chemical entity development as well as developing this as a botanical drug. So our paradigm is that go to the molecule, identify the molecule, perhaps if required, revert back and develop that as a botanical, because that becomes very solid scientific proof in your hand. So we did all kinds of chemistry, I don't describe it, you can see we can get IC50s into 115 nanomolar for CDK2 and CDK9. So this I think there are two compounds in this series that we have shortlisted and which are now into some phase of xenograph model evaluation. Mechanism also have been done in the institute, and preclinical data, decent solubility, in vitro cytotoxicity, target IC50, protein binding, CYP liability, CACO2 permeability, log-P, and all this data is available for these. So this is all data that you need for IND enabling studies. And when much of this data has been actually done by our CRO partners. This would have not been possible in the time frame that we are running these projects if we decided to do all of this by ourselves. It's just not possible in these systems. This is another natural product. Again, we have a serious interest in marine natural product because we have in India, we have 8,000 kilometers long coastal tropical sea. And I think much of that natural product is unexplored. So this is another structure that we started working on, Mariolins. Very, very important structure. We had the modeling work done and started a chemistry program, and we got some really good substance from this. These patents have been filed now, and again we have done all the preclinical profiling, so it looks like very good scaffold for. So we are now going into xenograph model to take this molecule forward. This program we started because there's a lot of hype about these aphrodisiac and PDE5 inhibitor from natural products, and I believe that this is a good area, but we have to go right way with a lot of science. So in order to do that, we set up this biology of PDE5 in the institute. We got a very young guy who joined us, and then he set up this assay for us. And to validate that assay, we synthesize both these are billion-dollar drugs currently in the market. So we synthesize them in-house and profile them. And then we started our own program. We have in the institute, we have now started building a pure natural product compound library and a synthetic compound library. Our synthetic compound library is running to 60,000 compounds as of now, and pure natural product compound library is 1,000 pure compounds. These are all 95% pure with the full data, and now it is mandatory in the institute that any compound is isolated or made in the institute has to be submitted to this repository. So this way we are slowly generating that resource, and out of that work we got this structure where IP has been filed. As you can see, it's giving us better than what we have in the two molecules that are in current use. Very decent and linear response with these two structures. And the problem with this class of compound, and also of course very good PK data. As you can see, PK data compared with sildenafil, better pharmacokinetic data in terms of half-life with sildenafil. The problem with this kind of structure is that there are several PD isoforms which you don't want to touch, and there is one here which is particularly susceptible to drug, which is this. You get blue color in your eyes when you are consuming these drugs. So, of course, setting up all this assay is not practically possible in the institute, so we tie up with a Canadian company and we got it done there and we have that profile. So, looks like we have very interesting substance. And then we did in vivo study in-house in Rabbit, and then this study was then validated in Reliance Life Sciences in Mumbai, and we have the validated data. This is another area that we have started recently. Here the paradigm is that there is a new hypothesis in Alzheimer that amyloid plaque production is a normal metabolic activity, and a child and an old man generate same amount of amyloid plaque. The difference is that when you get older, the ability of your system to efflux amyloid plaque out of your brain get diminished. Means the PGP efflux pump in the epithelial brain barrier in older patient is get lesser and lesser, and that's why more of the amyloid plaque is generated in your system. And this has been validated in a very nice clinical study published in Science in the University of St. Louis, where they have a small number of patients, they have validated, they have measured the clearance of amyloid plaque using isotope labeled carbon, and where you can actually measure these movements. So with this we have started a program where, going back to our success story with the Resorine and the capacity that we have in institute to look into these bioenhancers, we started this program. Can we translate this, what we have learned in tuberculosis and infection, to Alzheimer's disease? And we set up this PGP flux assay, the transcription factor which controls PGP PXR assay, and then we screen entire natural product library that we have. That's the advantage of using a resource available to you. And then we got some very interesting substance right up to EC50 2.8 nanogram. These are perhaps the most powerful PGP inducing substance reported anywhere in the literature. And this of course has been filed for IP, and we are now working on two important scaffolds. This scaffold, hyperforin and rifampicin. Very surprisingly, rifampicin is a very powerful inducer. So if somehow through chemistry we can do away with antibacterial activity of rifampicin, we have a very interesting substance in our hand, and this has been validated in a Alzheimer model in an animal model. This, of course, is our success story in Resorine, which is I will just not repeat it. This is a drug which is now in the market, and Professor Roy Chaudhary, I can tell you now we have data of 50,000 patients available. We are analyzing that data, and our effort is now to then either to take the IND route to USFDA or NDA route to USFDA, so that this discovery from the institute and the India should get global recognition. That's our effort in 12 plan. So I will skip few slides. Just give you some idea that how can you build one idea over another idea. So with this structure, this discovery, and a lot of synthetic chemistry, what we have figured out that same concept can be used in other class of drugs where you have a problem of pharmacokinetics related problem. So now we are working in combination with miprocin, which is a topical antibiotic, along with some of the synthetic compounds based on the structure of piperine. And here we can virtually reduce the miprocin content as well as the resistant development for miprocin. So it is very interesting. So we are discussing with companies to take this forward. Now, two examples I'll give you. How do we do botanical? These are the new examples that I'm sharing with you. So what we do when we are doing this natural product chemistry in the institute, we are looking at a small molecule, pure compound. Many times when we decide logically that after having discovered active principle, should we go back to develop this as a botanical? And that approach we have followed in these two examples. This is a very well-known plant, Virginia ciliata, very privileged in the Ayurvedic literature, and we then isolated this substance. We were not studying this for that biological activity, but we got this substance, and then we tested this substance for TNF, because there is a great need of a small molecule TNF inhibitor. Because of these antibodies that are in clinical use for last almost 10 years, they have a problem because they are exposing people to tuberculosis and and others. So you can see 100 nanomolar, close to 100 nanomolar IC50 with the pure compound that we got, and then we decided that okay, we revert back and study this as a botanical. So we validated this in cytokine model, LPS model, CIA model with the pure compound, and then we did the same studies parallel with the botanical extract, hydroalcoholic extract. This is the CIA data, very decent activity. Then we set up the CMC, because now we know what is the active compound, and using the FDA guideline, the 4 other markers, we set up this because we have a very robust quality control, quality assurance group, thanks to Dr. Kazi, and I think that group now we are gearing towards developing this CMC and set up in the institute. So it's all CMC data. Then, of course, with the cytokine data, with the extract and acute toxicity. So this also, so up to 2 gram per kg, we find no adverse side effect with this. So this is our pathway that perhaps for rheumatoid arthritis, this could be a botanical drug which needs evaluation, and then we are discussing with Medanta to take it forward. This is the second one. Again, the disulfide binactiferum, where we had the CDK inhibitor, but this also when we tested in TNF alpha and inflammation, is also very important. And in fact, in the literature for Amula rohatica, it is actually recorded for inflammatory diseases. So we did the same kind of studies. You can see again, this is very potent TNF alpha blocker. We sterilized this plant, did the CIA study. You can see the control, and 25 and 50 milligram per kg in CIA, very decent activity. I think this control is antibody that is used in clinic. So we did that, CMC, and then again the acute toxicity up to 175 milligram per kg. This is a little toxic than the previous one. So perhaps we have to calibrate the content of, and that is where I was discussing with Raj Chaudhary, that when we are thinking of phytopharmaceutical guidelines, this must be kept in mind, that the criteria that we define for developing a candidate, a partially purified extract and fraction should also be included in that process, because that lot of value we can derive from that. And of course, this is the development status for this. So we have pathway for how we are going to take this forward. And whatever data that we are generating here, we are following the draft guideline of US FDA. So we're hoping that wherever we go, it will be acceptable. So I think I will stop here and thank, because I just can't put so many people who contributed to these efforts. I'm just presenting their work. This is a whole team effort of the institute, and I am very proud to be working in an institute where there's so much energy and so much sort of synergy, both with the oncology resource and then with the support of a lot of our partners and clinical partners. We are taking some of these discovery forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is somewhere in the traffic.
Yes, please.
So in the meantime, lunch is not ready.
Yeah.
So we can ask both the speaker if you have any question, so we can utilize the time to have a discussion that we did not have. Ask if you have any question for Dr. Kapoor. Yes.
So with respect to the Burjani, the activity when you compared for Burjani and the Virginia extract, what was the outcome? Whether the activity was more with the extract or it was with the alcohol?
No, activity will be less in extract, obviously. But we can calibrate with the activity with the pure compound. See, when we have botanical, my primary concern is safety. Activity is my secondary concern. So primary concern is safety. So we have to use the doses where I can get because this is the safety data that I have shown you is very, very limited. We have just done the acute toxicity data. We need to do the full package of data. But obviously the activity will be lesser in the extract than pure compound. idea is that what I am trying to say is that you don't have, these things are not mutually exclusive. You can have your discovery program based on the compound. I will continue working on Bacillin, and I will, on the side, I will continue developing this as a botanical product. Both these things can go hand in hand.
When used excipients like DMSO and absolute alcohol, which is not allowed for oral consumption again, and we are using the intravenous.
Yeah. So right now I am fully aware of that DMSO is not allowed, but this formulation has been developed first to check the pharmacokinetics parameter. So right now our objective is somehow how to increase my oral, firstly how to detect this substance in oral paradigm, that is required. And basically once we do all these studies, then obviously we have to go to some professional formulation group to help us find a right excipient which is regulatory accepted. But for PK, my advice, I think Ramesh is sitting here, and you can comment on this. This is accepted for your pharmacokinetic study. And I think Ramesh is the one who came up with this formulation.
In order to check the preliminary pharmacokinetics, we always pick up the solvent where you can solve it. Because the solvent is very high order for us, because it is not going to be conventional solvents which are routinely used. That's why we use the high on the soluble acid. So now we know what are the organic solvents which can solve it. So we are parallelly working on reduce the DMS2 and other organic matters to get it a formulation, IV formulation which is formed with
Bracketing and overall that FTC.
No, it was tested only for PK. The formulation was not used for human biology.
No, so for activity, excipient formulation without drug was tested.
So there is no effect of the plant formulation on it.
I think if you need further information, you can.
Just one small, it's connected with this. You said that you did not have PK data on the IV route. So is that right?
No, IV was there, but orally it was not getting
No,
it.
you did not get it. So did you find this? Could you get a good profile of PK?
IV, yes.
IV.
IV is excellent profile.
IV.
That is why our hypothesis is that substance is converting in the gut to something else,
Yeah.
which is
But
giving
still
us-
active.
It's still active.
Still active.
So he is doing the metabolism.
Okay, now I will invite the speaker we were waiting for since morning, Dr. Gupta.